Is it impossible to maintain a keto diet? Well, according to some people, they're nearly impossible to maintain, and we're going to talk about that today reading this Insider article. The title is, High-fat diets like keto are nearly impossible to maintain, research suggests, but there's an easier way to eat well. So if you're new here, my name's Emily and this is Sarah, and we are identical twin sisters who have lost 160 pounds on a ketogenic lifestyle. Sarah and I started keto way back in January of 2019, and now it's 2022. And we have been eating keto for 3.5 years now. It's almost 4 years now. Time is flying. And so I think that we're proof that you can maintain this. Sarah and I take a relaxed approach to keto, which is also the name of this channel, which we call technically keto. And we enjoy whole, nutritious foods most of the time, and then we indulge for like 30% of the time. And we find that doing it this way, we can maintain our weight loss and have a enjoyable life. So I don't know if I agree with this article right off the bat, but we're gonna have to read a little bit more. The title though, I already don't agree, so. So the beginning part of this article just explains what keto is. To them, it says keto, as more often as it's known, is an eating plan that coaxes your body to burn fat for energy rather than using carbohydrates first, as is typical. The metabolic state is called ketosis. It is the same thing that happens when we are starving. I like how they compare that. The body burns fat stores to stay alive. Keto dieters trigger the fat burning mode by cutting out almost all carbs from their meals. On a well-planned keto diet, people get around 70 to 80% of their daily calories from fat and 20 to 25% from protein sources, saying goodbye to sugar. And generally, we would agree with that. That's pretty much what you need to do in order to get into ketosis. For us, generally, just to let you know, it takes about 2 to 3 days eating less than 20 net carbs a day in order to get into ketosis. Some people might experience the keto flu if you are new to this, and that's just your body switching over fuel sources. So, you know, make sure that you're getting enough water, sleep, electrolytes, etc. Doctors recommend keto diets in certain circumstances. It's an established way to help control type 2 diabetes. It's a plan that helps reduce epileptic seizures for nearly 100 years. Scientists have even some limited evidence that keto diet might help overweight people keep extra pounds off. Like, limited evidence? I mean, okay, here we go. Though other studies reject the idea. I think we're proof that it works. Emily and I struggled for a very long time with our weight loss. We were in denial for a long time. Yeah. There was anything that I would do other than keto because honestly, I really like bread. I still like bread. I like carbs. I like pasta. I miss it. But it's like sometimes in life you just have to do the thing that you know works. And sometimes you have to say no, like forever, to the things that you truly want because when left to our own devices, I could easily gain 10 pounds a month. We call ourselves carb addicts because we really believe that we are. Some people wouldn't suggest giving people that are alcoholics drinks. Oh, why don't you just have one drink? So we kind of feel the same way. We try to avoid carbs. We feel the best when we're not eating carbs, and generally I'm overall happier eating a low carb life. You know what's funny about that though? It says here that it's an established way to help control type 2 diabetes. So why wouldn't it just be good for everybody in that case? Type 2 diabetes is so common nowadays within people. So why wouldn't it just be common knowledge that you should avoid carbs? I just want to put this out there too, is that we're not medical professionals. We don't pretend to be, but these are just logical things that I think when I'm reading this kind of stuff, it's like if carbs are the thing that are causing type 2 diabetes, then why would we be eating them in the first place? So there's also research talking about type 3 diabetes. If you haven't heard about that yet, you should look it up. It's called Alzheimer's. Right. So do your own research on that. Like Emily said, we're not medical professionals. But for most people, a high-fat, low-carb keto diet can be really hard to maintain. We can agree with that. Instead, habit experts recommend a different way to eat healthy, creating a simple, sensible eating routine that are easy to follow, blah, blah, blah. Okay, the first section of this article says the keto diet is highly restrictive. Do you agree with that? I mean, I think that any diet is restrictive. Right. It just depends on what you're trying to restrict. Vegans don't eat any animal products, and people who try to lose weight the traditional way are avoiding fat. And so what about every diet is not restrictive? You have to restrict something. Exactly. If not, then you're not on a diet. Right. Or a way of eating, right? Like people who are gluten intolerant don't eat gluten. That's restrictive to the point where they are even apprehensive about going to restaurants and checking every package on every label. Like you're going to have to make a decision. what you want. Do you want to lose weight or do you want to not? In some way, you're going to have to restrict something. So isn't every diet a restriction of something?
Right. Aside from the metabolic shift into a fat-burning state, the keto diet is hard to adjust psychologically. If you're going keto, daily eating habits become a math equation. I mean, I agree with that, but also you should know what you're putting in your mouth. You know, we could easily eat our carb allowance in just drinks if we didn't look at the back of the container. Yes, it is a habit that I look and to make sure to see how much sugar or carbs are in something, but I don't necessarily think that that's a negative thing.
Also, I don't necessarily think that after a while that it has to be a math equation. You know, a lot of people, we are very relaxed when it comes to this, and honestly, our focus is weight loss, but the side effect is that we feel really great on this lifestyle. We don't overthink things too much. Like, I'm not concerned with the fat ratios and weighing everything and, you know, tracking everything. Like, we pretty much eyeball it, and we have for a long time. I cannot even count the amount of times I've counted anything on keto. I just generally know what to eat and what to avoid to maintain my weight loss. In the beginning, it could kind of seem hard because honestly, it's a shock to see that this has this many carbs in it. So I can understand why it could be overwhelming at first, but after a while you kind of get like the gist of what is bad and what is good, or what has too many carbs in it and what doesn't. And so if something has like a trace amount of carbs in it, honestly, I don't worry about it. Like, life is too short for me to worry about it. I can understand if you're really like clean keto, strict keto, you probably don't follow us if that's the case anyway. But we are very relaxed about it. And if you're looking to lose weight on keto and feel better, then the way that we do it is honestly a very sustainable way to follow this lifestyle. Yes, there's lots of restrictions. Yes, you cannot eat whatever you want, but that is the case with every diet. We just like to have a more realistic approach on that. And that is why it's 4 years later and we haven't gone back. It's because this is doable. And you don't have to overthink it too much. And you don't have to track everything if you don't want to. You can always do that if maybe like you're into that type of thing.
I would think that in the beginning, you need to be a little bit aware of what you're putting in your mouth and kind of track it if you have never done this before.
Right.
I will agree with that. And that mental shift is tiring.
Right.
Because you're obsessed with thinking about what you're going to put in your mouth, what you're going to buy, and all that stuff. But like, couple years later, we don't think that way anymore. And so just know that eventually it's very difficult in the beginning for any type of diet or any type of lifestyle change. It's difficult, but eventually you're going to get used to it and you're not going to think about it all the time. I think when we're starting a new lifestyle change, you think about it constantly and it just drags you down. You're not going to feel like that forever. Like, we hardly think about the diet outside of when we're going to eat, honestly. And it's just better that way. I don't want to think about what I'm going to eat all the time. But we're going to talk about that, how to cope with that later on with some strategies that we actually follow. Strict diets are quickly abandoned. Physiologist Professor David Harper, who is studying the keto diet may help cancer patients, believes that going keto should be a long-term choice, not a fad to try willy-nilly. We agree. We always say on our other channel, Keto Twins, that this is a lifestyle and not a diet. And we truthfully believe that. You cannot go back to the way that you're eating before. I'm sorry that you have to hear this from us, but no one really talks about this. A lot of people that are on their journey,
They're waiting for the end.
they're waiting for the end. It's never gonna end. Let us tell you that now.
We've been doing this for decades.
We started doing Atkins low carb in high school. We would lose 60 pounds, immediately gain it back. Why? Because after we hit our whatever goal weight or whatever, we would start eating carbs again. And then we would gain our weight back and more. And we're here to tell you that you're always gonna have to watch your carbs. Just like anybody who's restricting calories will have to watch their calorie restriction for the rest of their lives. It's an ongoing journey, but it gets easier when this diet becomes a lifestyle. You will need to be committed, and you really need to say, I've been on the wrong path for a long time, and I'm willing to give up a lot of these foods that I really love, that I'm emotionally attached to, he said. And like, that's exactly how we think about it. So it's funny that they go ahead and they say that it's unsustainable, but this doctor, David Harper, said exactly how we feel. You need to be committed. Think about how you feel, how great you feel, and just realize that you're making the right choice for yourself every time you choose to eat keto. Unfortunately, psychologists say most people do not approach a new eating plan with that kind of commitment.
Well, yeah, because you're like thinking about your vacation that's coming up or your high school reunion, and you're thinking that this end date, after that, you're going to be able to go back to the way that you were eating before. And that's already setting yourself up for failure, because the way that you were eating before got you to be obese or overweight or however you feel about yourself right now. And so it has to be a step into like a new life altogether, where you're going to have to say no. And saying no does become easier after a while, because you know how it makes you feel. I always say this, I didn't know what it felt like to feel good before I was on keto for a while.
Right.
And then we went off and I said, wow, I know that I used to feel like this after I ate, like almost to the point where I was sick. And so now I feel like a completely different person. And do I want to go back to that way that I felt every single time that I ate? I always say that we ate like we were on death row, because it's true. And every meal had to be extremely lavish, and every meal had to be like the craziest thing that we could get on the menu. And now it's like, even if you fall off, you know that you have to go back to the way that you were eating to make you feel good. And once you establish that baseline of I feel good most of the time, I feel good all the time, I sleep through the night, I wake up feeling refreshed, then you're going to have like that will to go back to eating the way that you know that you should be eating. But if you never feel that, if you never give it a chance to actually feel good, then you won't even know what you're missing out on.
And I would just like to say that we have gone off the diet. Like, Emily and I just went to Hawaii. Like, I guess not just went, that was months ago, but we did indulge here and there. But when we came back, we got back on, because the vacation was not our life. That was just a small period of time. We did, you know, want to have a piece of pineapple in Hawaii. That's not keto. But when we got home, we got back on, and we didn't allow that to like throw everything out the window and gain back all the weight that we had lost previously. And that's part of it too. You're going to fall off, and that's okay. Take the next meal and start again. That's what we like to say as well. Because a lot of people don't talk about their failures and they're going off keto. Sometimes it's just not possible. Wood said part of the problem is that being on a diet like keto requires people to make a lot of extra decisions throughout their day about what they can and cannot eat. That's not how most people prefer to live their lives. Humans excel at autopilot. About 40% of what we do every day is habitual and thoughtless. And I agree with this. And right now that is thoughtless, like how we eat. We can look at a menu item and be like, that's keto, that's not keto. But that's something that we had to learn over time. It takes time. You know, just something that we have implemented into our lives to help with this issue is intermittent fasting. Emily and I tend to eat
mostly one meal a day.
Mostly one meal a day, because honestly, we don't want to think about food all the time. Emily and I are very busy with jobs and like this channel. It takes up a ton of time. We have to think a lot about what we're going to be cooking for this channel. One meal a day is enough for me to want to think about. We definitely eat like our luxurious meal once a day, and that's enough for me. I hate thinking about food all the time. So if you're thinking about breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, I don't know how people think that much about
even
food.
The cleanup involved.
Exactly. And the money. We save so much money only eating a couple meals a day. So that's what we could say. Intermittent fasting, if you don't know what that is, you can look it up. It's just, you know, having a eating window. Generally for us, it's one meal a day, very large meal that encompasses all of the carbs and the calories that we need for that day, usually around 3 to 4 p.m., maybe sometimes it's later, and we really don't eat beyond that. And it's hard to do. So we could talk about intermittent fasting in another video if you guys want, and how we kind of ease ourselves into it. It's definitely not something that you can just do
out of the blue.
Out of the blue. You kind of have to ease yourself in. She added that restrictive diets could also be socially isolating. Yeah, I can agree with that. So much of our social reaction involves food.
But that's the same as any type of addiction that you have. So if your friends smoke, and you're hanging around them and they're smoking, that's going to be very difficult for you.
True.
And if you drink, then it's going to be very difficult for you to go out and be sober while everybody else is enjoying having some drinks. And the same is true with this, but you have to have the willpower to say no. And you know what we always say is to eat before you go. And you can enjoy like an appetizer, or you can enjoy just picking off of something, ordering something keto, but chances are you're going to be full when you leave, and that's going to give you the control to hang out socially while not like just looking at everybody else's food and thinking how much your life sucks, right? But that kind of bugs me, because that could be like so many different scenarios where you feel like socially isolated. Yep. Being on a diet is only one of those instances. You have to figure out ways to adapt to seeing other people. And if the only reason why you're seeing other people is because you want to eat, then that's going to be difficult. And if you can only hang out with your friends when you're drinking heavily, that's going to be difficult if you're trying to not drink anymore, right? So this could be in many different instances.
It's often said that 9 out of 10 dieters will fail, but that statistic is largely unproven, okay? The why is included. Instead, an overwhelmingly body of science evidence suggests that the most successful diets are plans that encourage people to munch in moderation and avoid overeating.
The whole point is that you can't moderate yourself eating carbs.
Right.
If you could, then you wouldn't be here.
I know.
Hey, I wish I could. I just can't. I just turn into a carb monster. It's very hard to control yourself around carbs or you wouldn't be obese in the first place.
What we always like to say is eat the protein first if you're out and about and you don't have control of where you're going to be going. Every menu has a protein item. Eat it first, and then if you're going to cheat.
But chances are you're probably not going to.
You're probably not going to, and even if you do,
you're not going to be.
You're going to get full fast.
Right.
And that's what we've done forever. Like if we're at a party where we don't control the food, eat the protein first, wait 10 minutes, and if you're like, oh, I really want a piece of cake, okay, eat it. And then tomorrow you start again.
Right.
You didn't gain weight overnight. That one piece of cake isn't going to derail you forever. It might kick you out of ketosis. But making small changes, prioritizing protein and fat is how we have kept it off for this long. And that's something that we did not do before. Every time we would go off the diet, we would go straight back to eating carbs and we would instantly gain the weight back. And so we've really learned that focusing on protein first, fat first, it just takes away that craving of needing to eat something terrible.
It turns off something in your brain where you're just like, I don't need to eat that anymore.
Exactly. It's like going shopping when you're hungry.
Right.
Never go shopping when you're hungry. And you're going to make better decisions. And that's kind of like how we feel when we're going out and about or we're eating anywhere. We are picking protein and fat first. Whatever you eat, it's important to find a plan that makes you feel good and stick to it. Okay. That would be with any diet. Every single time all of these articles break down keto and try to make it seem like such a terrible plan, they end up throwing the responsibility back to the person. Like, it's up to you to eat cleanly. And if you can't do it, then it's up to you. I don't get the point of these types of articles. I feel like they're trying to like get all the people that are on keto to like come and read this or something. Mm-hmm. But overall, pretty much it's up to you to decide what you put in your mouth at the end of the day. That's kind of like how I read the end of this article. There's always going to be people that doubt keto, but when I read that the first step is like solving diabetes or helping with type 2 diabetes, helping with all of these symptoms, I feel like we're on the right track. And that's all I care about. I don't really care what mainstream media says about my diet. I really don't care what, Bob down the street has to say about it. I feel good. You got to think about how you feel when you're doing it,
In life, if you wait for everybody to justify every action that you take, you're never going to do anything.
You're going to wait a long time.
It doesn't matter if it's a YouTube channel, doesn't matter if it's a new hobby. If you wait for people to validate you and to be like, yeah, do that, that's the right thing. Everybody's got their own agendas with everything. You have to realize this about every aspect of your life. Do what you want to do unapologetically and just do it. And be fierce about what you believe, right? If you believe that keto makes you feel great, then it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say about it. Samantha Jones from Sex and the City, one of my favorite characters of all time, said, if I cared about what women thought about me, I would never leave the house. And it's true. You might not have friends and family and a support system that believes in what you're doing. That's okay. You have to believe in yourself. I know that sounds so
cliche.
Yeah, it's the truth. Because you're the one that has to live with your decisions and you're going to be the one that has to deal with the ramifications of your actions. And so you're going to benefit from this the most. Everybody else will not. So if you feel good on keto, whatever type of keto you decide to do, clean, lazy, whatever, then that is what you should follow. Don't let other people's opinions on the internet or your Aunt Sally that you see twice a year that says that keto is going to kill you, don't let her opinion change what you know is right for you. And speaking of that, if you feel like there are people in your life that are constantly sabotaging you, you are not alone, and we're going to talk about that in the next video. So click right here, and we'll see you over there. Anyway, I'm Emily.
And I'm Sarah,
and we are the Keto Twins, signing out.